MIDCONVO. What's up? It's Paul and Ed here with the MIDCONVO podcast. We're in Chicago.
Yeah, we're in Chicago for season 2, baby.
Season 2, season dos, whatever language you speak, you get it. We're pumped because we're going to be talking about the art of asking questions.
Yeah, because asking questions when it comes to your business, when it comes to being a creative, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, I feel like asking questions has single-handedly got me to where I am in many regards. So I'm really excited to break this down because Paul, too, I feel like you have so many good experiences that you've had because of the art of asking questions. So I'm excited for this one.
Me too, man. And I think around the whole theme of building with others, if you want to connect with people, whether it's networking or you want to connect with clients, or you're an entrepreneur like me and Ed, and you're just trying to grow, I think it's important to be able to navigate those, what are the right questions to ask? When should I listen? So we're going to hop into it, but hold up. Let's roll that intro music.
Obviously, asking questions does a lot for you, but we're going to break down 4 things that asking the right questions can really help you with. First one being, number 1, building credibility. Asking questions can build credibility. What are some questions that you've asked your clients when it comes to asking or building credibility?
Yeah, I think to set the tone, if you're able to ask the right questions, like you said, it builds credibility, but also builds that trust. And what I like to do is I like to do a whole lot of prior research on whoever I'm going to be speaking with, whether it's a brand, whether it's an individual. Maybe I'm getting together with a potential contractor. Let's say it's a wardrobe stylist. What are some of the things that I can ask her in order to show her that I actually care and that I actually took the time to, learn as much as I can going into that conversation? But I think that some of the cooler brands that I've been able to work with as a freelancer, if I go back to those discovery calls, it was asking questions that shows that I know what I'm doing, but also I'm really excited about what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions that I like to ask most frequently is, what are some of the things that you guys are working on that you're most excited about? Because they're instantly like, oh, I'm able to share everything that we have going on at our company. This is exciting. And then I'm able to follow it up by maybe something that's a little bit more strategic and speaks to the market, which is much easier when you're in that niche. So if I'm working for a health and wellness brand, I might say, hey, what are your thoughts on this whole trend right now of documenting the founder building in public? They immediately go, well, that's something we bring up in our marketing meeting.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that you are aware. Market awareness is everything. So how do you translate that into questions?
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what your perspective is on that, because I know you've been able to build some relationships with some pretty cool people and brands. And I know that just doesn't come from just showing up on a call and being like, hello. I mean, you're aware, you're asking questions, you're proactive.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I mean, honestly, when it comes to the aspect of building credibility, one question I really love to ask clients or potential clients too is, how did you find me? Right? Because when you find out how they found you through Instagram, through your website, maybe it was a referral, it gives you a little more context as to what piece of work they might have saw, the connection that you might have with this client or this brand. And so also it just builds your credibility. They obviously you want to know how they found you. And so with that context, you can also ask more questions, because then also you can figure out what type of content they're looking for. If oh, I found you from your Instagram, I really like this reel. It's boom, right then and there, you know what type of questions you want to start asking. Or it's no, actually, I found this piece of work on your portfolio, on your website. Now you have questions versus just going out the gate being cool, let's talk about your project. This is my process. This is my system. It's you're telling and not asking.
Wow, that's good.
And so I feel building credibility is honestly just figuring out, getting more context, because when you get more context and you have that awareness like you were talking about, it shows that you care. Every brand knows that there are a ton of different types of creatives they can work with. And also for creatives, there are a ton of brands we can work with. So it's always this dance of, do you respect me? Do I respect you? Do you find me credible? Do I find you credible? And so as you can break down those walls as quickly as possible, you'll be able to build credibility, I think. through questions.
That's awesome. I like how you brought up the how did you find me? Followed up by maybe the question could be is, what is it about my work that you liked that made you reach out to me? If it's an inbound, because I think that what we do is so visual. If you're a freelancer listening to this, especially a creative, and it's cool to hear like what they enjoyed, because you're essentially building credibility before you even open your mouth. So I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that feel like they need to overspeak in order to show their credibility or their, what they do. And what I don't like is I don't like when people name drop big brands right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Because that just goes to show they're maybe insecure and they're trying to figure out how to win over that conversation right away. But I think if you're able to slow down, ask the right questions, and then listen, there's going to be so much fruit that comes from it.
For sure. What's the second area, the type of questions or second area we want to cover in this episode?
I think it's questions that help you learn more about whoever you're speaking to.
So learning questions.
Yeah. My favorite thing to do when I'm networking, it could be even at a coffee shop and someone, is on their computer in Lightroom. How do I break the ice with them and just connect with them? And it's asking questions like, oh my gosh, I see that you're in Lightroom. What is it that you do? Open-ended questions go so far when you're trying to learn and gather information. And then on the client side, I'd love to hear like, what are some of the learning questions you've done in order to figure out, okay, how can I gather all this information to then go put together maybe a proposal or just to like break down that surface levelness,
Yeah. No, that's honestly so good. I love how you kind of gave the question you ask, like people you meet, like other creatives, and then also on the brand side. For me, one question I love asking other creatives to learn more about them is if they're coming on a project or I'm hiring them or we're just like kind of trying to do a creative project together, I always ask, what is like your dream project? Like what type of content would you love to be shooting? That gives me so much context about where they want to go. Because when you don't have that context, they might not even be on a project they want to be on. And then that obviously gives you more context too. Because every time I ask that question to people, they'll have things they want to say. They have a list like, oh, I would love to work in more like fashion, honestly. I'd love to work on like more YouTube. Like I want to build more personal brand. Then you can actually start to learn more about where they want to go. And then that can give you more context on whether or not you want to start working more with them or if there's anything you can do to help them achieve their goals as a creative. And then on the brand side, I always love asking too, like, what does like an ideal content look like for you right now? Like, is it marketing ads? Like, do you need to make conversions or is it just building brand awareness? Like, what is like the perfect video? If we could make a perfect video, like take me out of the picture. What does a perfect video look like for you? Sometimes they don't know, but sometimes they do. And it's like when you ask questions and you learn more about them, you're literally saving so much time. You're saving so much back and forth. I can't tell you how many times in the past I would have just told them, all right, this is the perfect video for you. Or when I meet creatives, I'm like, oh, you should do this route because this is what's in right now. And then like later you go down the road and it's not even, you're misaligned. And then you just wasted so much time just going back and forth speaking without actually accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
When you can just ask one question and have the full context of learning more about them.
That's so interesting. One tip that I can give to someone that's listening that's, maybe an entrepreneur, my mind goes towards like anyone that's a freelancer. If you're going to hop on a call with a potential client, don't ask them questions that you can easily figure out by just going to their website.
Ooh, that's good.
Like I've listened in on recordings from people's discovery calls. And the last question's like, what's your top selling product right now? Bro, go to their website, hit the filter at the top. Bestsellers.
Yeah.
It goes such a long way too when you do that research and you're able to be like, hey, I noticed that you were 30 under 34s. They're like, oh my gosh, that was such a cool moment for us last year. But I love those questions that you brought up. And I think ultimately when you're asking questions in order to learn, you got to be a good listener. I like to say 75% of the conversation should be them speaking. 25% should be you speaking. So you're going to want to make sure you ask questions that kind of pulls out as much as possible. So then by the end, you can be like, oh, this was an awesome conversation, an awesome fit, depending on what the context is.
Man, honestly, you're so right though, because listening is such a big part of feeling good as well. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm sure people who are listening can relate to this. I've been on discovery calls early in my creative career where I would get off of them and I'd be like, in my head, like, did that even go well? I'll speak a lot on the call and I can tell they're like nodding at the end, and then we'll get off and I'll be like crazy over analyzing. Like, I think I overshared, or I think I overspoke. And like, I'm sure people can relate to that. Not even just with business. I think that's just like a general communications type skill.
Yeah.
But man, there's no better feeling than getting off the call and being like, nah, I for sure only said what I need to say.
Yeah.
That's like
Wow.
a good feeling.
I like that.
So yeah, listening is so huge, because that ties directly. Like, obviously asking questions is important, but the part B to that I almost feel like they're paired together is listening. So
this is a good segue into, asking questions is also helpful when you're bringing people through a filter.
Filtering questions.
So filtering questions are questions that you ask in order to make sure it's a good fit.
Yeah.
Which typically when I'm asking these questions, it's on inbound or outbound discovery calls, or when I'm networking with contractors to see if they're a good fit to work with on projects as a producer.
Yeah.
What are some filtering questions that you've asked that I feel like are a part of who you are, whether it's your values or what you do, that helps you determine on, oh, this is going to be a home run as far as a relationship or a connect, or this is going to be a dud?
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, obviously there's a couple different types of relationships you build while running your business and just personally. But I would say when I'm looking to connect with creatives, oftentimes I become friends with people before I bring them on to any kind of project.
It's important.
It's not really, I mean, obviously I have like a network where if I need help, I will just reach out. But typically I become homies with them first. And then I'm like, you know what, we should like come on set together. And that's honestly probably because I'm filtering a little bit. Like I'm making sure it's a good fit. One of the questions I love to ask as well when I'm filtering is, where do you feel like you work best? Like, I know you're a photographer. I know you're like, you shoot video, but like, get a little more specific. Like, what about video do you love?
Wow.
If you're a photographer, it's like, what about photo do you love? Do you love the modeling aspect? Do you love, holding the gear? Are you like a gearhead, Because then that gives me a little bit more insight on where they could fit onto a project. Because if someone tells me like, oh, I love working with people, like I love posing people, like as a photographer, that's what I love doing. I probably think twice about bringing them on to like a product shoot where we're just shooting e-commerce things with like a product on like a little Lazy Susan.
Yeah.
They're not going to thrive there. And also I'm always thinking long term. Like when it comes to filtering questions, I'm always thinking long term. I'm never looking at a relationship like, oh, it's going to end right here. When you're filtering, you're asking questions because you want to see how far you could go with this individual, whether that's like a client, whether that's a creative you're connecting with, and just even in your personal life, like friends. So,
that's good.
Yeah, I always like to ask them like, what do you like? What in your process is like your favorite thing to do? Which is really similar to like the building credibility and also learning. But when it comes to filtering too, I feel like you really have to know what you like even, and how you work. Like before you hire out people, you need to know what your process is, because if you don't have a process, then it's like,
or your core values too.
Yeah, and your core values. I don't know if there's personal ones too, but I want to hear from you. Like maybe on the client side, like when you're working with brands, what are some filtering questions that you ask them to kind of make sure that it's going to be a good fit with your with your productions and with your team?
Yeah, I think it's asking them what their involvement's going to be. And just being like, hey, how do you guys want to be involved? Do you want to be hands-off or hands-on?
Like, are you on set? Are you not on set?
And then asking how they typically work with content partners. Because for me, I can tell based on their tone and how controlling they might be. Or I can also tell, wow, they're actually just hiring me because they know I'm really good at what I do. And they're willing to like stay in their lane so I can stay in mine. But I think it always comes down to like the filter for me is if they're price shopping, or if they're just hiring me because they know that I can offer value. So price shopping versus value shopping. So asking questions like, what's your budget? That's a filter. Because if you're looking for cheap, I'm probably not the guy. And then also asking questions like, have you been burned before? Because your boy doesn't want to be the person that has to deal with your baggage. No offense.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with clients before that I don't find out until after the shoot, during revisions, that they've gone through 3 other content partners over the last like 6 months. And the problem isn't the content partner. The problem is them. So I'm like, man, if I can just ask these questions before the project begins, it's going to be so much better. And I always like to say, whenever clients aren't a good fit for me, I just refer them to people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yo, you should talk to my buddy Jose. And then Jose calls me after, yo, that client was whack. I'm like, sorry, bro.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think if we're talking about asking questions that are filtering questions, my advice to you is to almost think about who your ideal client is and the type of people that you want to spend time with, and just know that those clients exist.
Yeah.
Because I used to think, oh man, I just got to work with this client, even though they're hard to deal with, because this is just the industry. No, heck no.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working with clients for going on 5-6 years. We're actually going to one of their headquarters tomorrow here in Chicago. The reason why is because I brought them through a filter 5 years ago, and it's just been able to get better and better. So I think filtering questions are helpful.
Yeah.
Ed said, you already said it, but if you're going to try to grow your network of contractors, you better make sure that you grab coffee or like hang out beforehand.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is to be having them on set doing all these things that just aren't good with your brand, or they're not a good extension of your business. And I think one way that you can avoid that is through those questions.
Yeah. Another thing too is figuring out, when it comes to filtering questions, you mentioned it briefly, but like core values. Like I've noticed oftentimes too, people that I would actually be friends with, and this goes with like creatives, like contractors I work with, and then also even brand owners or whoever my contact is at like the production client that I'm working with. If I ask them a little bit more personal questions like, hey, what's your like family life like? What's your, what do you do in your spare time? And I've noticed that like when we're a little bit more aligned on those things, it translates into being better on set. It translates to having a better client experience, like when you're a little bit more aligned. And those are questions you filter out, like you ask them, obviously, for you, like you're a family man, you have a faith, you have kids. And so I would imagine like that's a common ground you probably draw when you meet people. It's like, oh, I have kids. Like I get it, and right then and there, those little questions and figuring out whether or not they have a family, whether or not they do stuff on the weekends, like all these little things, asking those questions help you navigate a conversation better on discovery calls, client meetings, all those things where would be anxiety inducing. They're not as, they don't make you as anxious because you actually feel like you know this person.
Wow.
And that comes in the filtering process.
So I like that. I think the next kind of point that we're going to touch on is connecting.
Yep.
What comes to mind for that?
Well, when it comes to connecting, I also feel like this is more on like the long term we were talking about. Like, how do you actually connect with this person long term? Because there's probably contractors that you've worked with for years now.
Years,
right?
yeah.
Like, what would you say is, aside from the questions, a little bit of tangent, but like, what are like the main things that you feel like has stuck them around for as long as they have?
I think in the world of just how busy we get, especially as entrepreneurs, first impressions are everything.
Yeah.
Tone matters.
Yeah.
Eye contact matters. Showing up on time matters. I know like sometimes I'll catch people at the end of a day and they're like, hey, but it's like, here's the deal. If it's my first time meeting you, you got to make sure that you are trying to like, bring something to the table and just be as excited.
Bring some energy, yeah.
So I think there's awareness there. But as far as connecting goes, some of the contractors I've worked with that we've been working with for years on the video side and just like on projects in general, and even me and you, like when we think about the podcast, is our connection comes from connecting on a personal level, obviously, but it comes from us having that alignment with, hey, these are the things that you're really excited about. These are the things that I'm really excited about. Now, when we come together, how do we make sure that it's like synchronized? And I know not every relationship's going to be like that, but dude, I take the time, even if you're a plumber, I take the time to be like, man, tell me like a crazy plumber experience. Just to connect with them.
That's a really good question. Icebreaker.
Yeah. And that's my advice to anyone is don't put your guard down if you're connecting with someone when you ask them something and it's not what you wanted to hear. And I think I want to use this quick analogy of being at the random cousin's table at a wedding. When you're at that table and you're like, yo, I'm with the cousin's girlfriend. I'm with aunt's friend, like it's a random table of people and you go around and you ask what you do. It goes such a long way when you are aware and you're making eye contact and you're showing excitement for what everyone's doing, even if they're doing something that's totally opposite, because you never know what value they can provide to you, vice versa. And I love being friends with people regardless of whether they're in the same, you know, category of like photographer, videographer, because of how I've been able to set that foundation with connecting. So to recap, I think it's eye contact. I think it's making sure that you make a good first impression. Tonality. I've literally met with contractors before where their tone is so negative. I'm like, you're never going to be on set with me.
Yeah, that's facts.
Because I don't want to be in a relationship with someone long term if all you're doing is talking negative about the industry.
Bro, you could be so talented, but you come to set with like sour attitude, you're cooked. Like, I'm never hiring you again.
Bro, I thought you were about to say different words. Sour. You're crazy for that. That's so good. I mean, how about you though? You
For connecting
from built like brand partnerships to you've been working with Tori Merritt and a couple other people for quite some time.
Shout out Tori. Tori's the man.
Yep.
Honestly, for me, I've noticed as well one thing when it comes to connecting with others and asking questions. I forgot where I heard it or where I read it. It was something like along the lines of vulnerability and transparency is like mirrored. It's like when you open up to people, they open up back to you. When you're transparent with people, they're transparent with you as well.
Wow.
And so I've noticed when I'm trying to connect with people, I'll ask them questions like that. Like, for example, if I work with people closely, you know, we'll go through seasons where maybe a project isn't really fitting. It's not a good fit necessarily, or like maybe the project didn't go as planned. And the connecting aspect is, you know, like debriefing with them and being like, yo, what could have been better?
Wow.
Like, this is where I dropped the ball. I'll own up and like, I'm being vulnerable. Like, this is where I dropped the ball. But for you, like, where do you feel like you dropped the ball? Where do you feel like you could have done better? Or asking questions like, you know, I've noticed that you maybe aren't as focused as you have been. Like, is there something kind of weighing you down? And then you'll be surprised. People, even though you don't know them like for a long time, they will start to open up and they're like, yeah, well, you know what? Like, I kind of got this thing going on, and well, this project didn't go that well because like I feel like I was lacking in skills over in this area. And that right there, that's the connecting aspect.
Wow.
And I think that's what gets you closer to people, and that's what gets you building more of a team environment instead of like constantly always trying to have like a team all the time, because it doesn't work like that. Sometimes the client gets sometimes the client gets in the way, sometimes contractors get in the way, but for the most part, if we're all understanding and we're all connecting and we're all being vulnerable and transparent, I've noticed that my work is way better, and also my relationships that I make in the industry are way better as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got something for you off of that. It's like when you're asking a leading question to connect with someone, how about the power of the follow-up question?
Oh, yeah.
Like I've been in conversation with people before where they'll ask a question like, how are you doing? Honestly, not that good. Life's tough right now. Like, my kids are crazy. Oh man, that's probably nuts. But what if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so curious, I want to have kids. What do you mean it's crazy right now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sleeping right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to get more time back so I can spend more time with my wife. And then also I have some clients where post-production is kind of lingering. Dude, the power of the follow-up question, I think is something that will connect you with people. I just went up to someone that's a trainer at my gym. Shout out to Lifetime Fitness. And he was on his phone. And this is a man that I've seen more than my own family, because I'm working out in Miami. My parents are in Minnesota. I'm like, man, are you new to a Lifetime? Are you a trainer? He's like, yeah, kind of. I used to work out here. I'm like, what do you love about personal training? He was like, I'm like, what do I like about personal training? He didn't even know what to say. And then as he responded, I said, man, it's actually cool because I actually have a lot of similarities in the way I run my business. What are your thoughts on this? So now when I see him, his name is Armando, he gives me the peace sign, and we can actually have a connection now.
Yep.
So I think there's the power in the follow-up questions. But man, if we can give any advice when it comes to just this whole topic of the art of asking questions, what would you want to leave people with?
Well, first off, obviously the importance of asking questions. If you're listening to this right now or you're watching and you're like, man, I don't ask enough questions, or I don't ask enough, we'll start asking. But now going one layer deeper, to take away what type of questions should you ask? We talked about it. There is the building questions, building credibility of yourself. Then there is the learning, right? Learning questions. And
The
then filtering. And then connecting questions.
Yep.
And obviously maybe bookmark this episode, save it, go back and listen to it. Maybe even like write down the questions that we said in this episode. But taking those 4 categories of questions and keeping those in mind when you're now talking to contractors, talking to brands on a discovery call, trying to build your network, guaranteed one of the questions you ask will fall in between one of those 4 categories.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys found value from this episode. We back season 2. And if you found value from this episode, go check out the other episodes that we've done on asking the right questions. And I hope to see you guys on the next one.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Peace.